Hello everyone, I am Tacit and I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Perishing Pythons event in which the Rotting Serpent is added to the game. So this week, of course, we have a rework to Divinion Fields as well as a Kingdom Pass event going on for the next 2 weeks for it. As far as the main takeaways, I will have the full list in the description if you want to go and check into this. If you want to see every single possible change. However, the most noteworthy ones include mostly the changes to the epics, oddly enough. The two biggest ones being Bull Taurus and Atlanta, which is the free epic that you actually get from the kingdom itself. So Atlanta has probably the most interesting change. It is 1 mana cost lower, which in itself is not the interesting part. However, the part that is the very final one here. The armor-piercing trait, which it never really utilized much, has now been replaced with Swift. Swift is 75% mana start, which means this is a full AoE troop that hits all enemies for only a 3 mana cost. And of course, you get one for free really early on in the game, like the first few days that you play. You could easily get yourself a Atlanta just from completing out the Kingdom event, or, going and completing out the Kingdom questline. And getting a second one generally isn't that hard either. And this is just a really, really solid quick kill AoE now. She was already used occasionally in the past if you just need like a budget option that could hit all enemies. But now there will actually be some viable situations where if you need a quick kill team and you want to run like 2-3 of them just to get it up really, really quick. Of course, it doesn't have any extra turn potential like Truffle or Beatrix or something like that as far as things that can hit all things simultaneously pretty well. But what it makes up for is how quickly you can end up getting it up, only having essentially a 3 mana cost. And keep in mind, she does have a link as well. So she has air link still. So she still ends up gaining +1 yellow, which means not only does that apply to herself, though not too applicable since she only needs 3 mana, but it also applies to other yellows on your team. Or if you're stacking multiple yellows, like multiple of her on your team, as not only does the air link stack with itself, but also goes into anything else that might be yellow on your team. So has a lot of interesting implications running 2 or 3 of them in the future. And I could definitely see a lot of quick kill sections where it doesn't really matter if you're going to lose, where you would actually start bringing this out just for how quickly it can kill in some situations. Beyond that, Bull Taurus got a better HP boost ratio. It now has a 1.5. Oh no, never mind. This is just his magic scaling. Wait, they didn't do his HP boost ratio? No! They only did his magic scaling higher. I thought it was HP boost ratio. Oh, that's sad. Never mind. I was going to say, like, HP boost ratio troops might finally start becoming a little bit more viable, but never mind. It's just magic scaling. He's still useless. Never mind. It's just Atlanta. Atlanta's the only one to get any real change. Surprisingly, the mythics were really undertouched. A lot of the mythics that were already completely trash were not made much better, which is kind of surprising. Also, everything that was already good wasn't made any better either. The most noteworthy ones, actually, if we go over to it real quick, if we go over to Collection, go over to Divinion Fields. Currently have it set to something else because of the drop table this week. But if we go to Divinion Fields, if I can figure out how the alphabet works, there we go. But if we go over to Divinion Fields, yeah, none of the really good stuff that was already here got buffed, and nothing that was really bad got better. Astral Mother got a little bit of better boost ratio, but that's not enough to make her even remotely usable. Immortal Sagittarian and Sagittarian itself got no change whatsoever, so they're still pretty underwhelming. Wardbreaker, pretty notorious for having slightly too high of a mana cost, has not gotten his mana cost adjusted at all. He's still viable, but it's still really annoying to have to feed into that big of a bulky mana cost. When you absolutely have to, it's fine, but you're generally not bringing them out too often compared to other available options. Some things got a little bit tankier, like this got a little bit of reduction, I believe, instead of like leader or something. So this is a little bit of a better tank to go with all of its really good dodge, as well as its good, decent skull damage. But beyond that, not really too many changes across the line. Bull Taurus didn't really get much. Centurion, which was already pretty good, did not get any way to really be better. There are things in the Kingdom Pass that made it better, like the fact that this thing creates wildcard, which has some synergy with it. I think some other things also got like a little bit of better wildcard mechanic from having no mechanic at all. But it's not really that big of a buff since a lot of teams that you're running with Centurion aren't necessarily really wildcard heavy, unless I guess you're going all in Wild Plains. But yeah, Atlanta's the only one that got a super buff. Her full kit now is a 20% dodge, air link, 75% mana start with only a 12 to begin with. And of course, her ability is very straightforward, just hits all enemies. but being able to do so for so cheap definitely has its utility purposes, and be curious to see how this affects some quick kill stuff in the future. Biggest downside with this, of course, is being that she has a 100% chance to end turn, but that's not too bad for how quickly she can get off the ground. But overall, I would say pretty underwhelming. Not too much change, particularly in the Centaur category. I was hoping that this would maybe be the time where Centaurs become not completely useless, but no, they're still pretty bad. Aside from the few like Road Breaker and like the one Devour off of Centurion, there's not much. That's like all you have. Even some of the better things in this kingdom aren't even Centaurs. Even things you think would be Centaurs that aren't even Centaurs. For example, Wild Knight. That kind of looks like a Centaur and is really good. Overall bulky, really kind of good first slot troop for never dying. This is not a Centaur. It's a Fey Knight. And then, of course, you have other things like Atlanta, which got by far the biggest benefit out of anything here. However, she's also not a Centaur. She's a human rogue. So Centaurs still pretty trash, unfortunately. Centaurs have not been saved by the Divinion Fields update. I guess they did get a few other things for the Kingdom Pass. I guess we should head over there now. So, Kingdom Pass. You should be keeping up with this every single day. Keep in mind, these are now a 2-week event compared to what they used to be, where they were, like, well, almost a month long. But they are 2-week events now, which means you only have 1 day of leeway. If you miss 2 days, you will have to spend some amount of gems if you want to go and finish it out. So make sure to not be missing any days. You only have 1 day leeway. If you miss 2, you would have to spend some amount of gems. If you miss 1, you'll still be fine. You'll still be able to get all the wards, but do be wary of that. Basically, to be able to do this, there'll be 10 battle crashers every single day that you want to go and kill for. The easiest way to end up getting these battle crashers is go to any quick kill location that you want to, with whatever your quick kill team is, and simply go and quick kill it, and then there'll be a chance that that thing appears. Then you go and kill it. Also, I probably should be running this 25 damage Dust Devil team, which is the Sister Superior Dust Devil double Iron Hawk, which is also cheaper since you only need 2 Iron Hawk instead of 3. As 20 damage is not enough to kill it, but 25 is. So do be wary of that if you are running a Dust Devil team, but if you just want to kill them quicker, you can still go down that route and just simply poke them with a skull. But you just do that every single day until you find 10 of them, and this will give you your full amount of progress. Overall, everything on the paid side, nothing really too over the top. Of course, keep in mind, you do get the 2 lower rarity troops for free. You'll end up getting 1 copy of, as well as the pet for free for 1 copy of. The main thing that the paid side does is give you a bunch of resources, enough to max each one of them if you don't want to have to spend other resources for it. But the only unique things that the paid side ends up giving, aside from just more loot and more copies of stuff, is this weapon, which is interesting, though I don't think it's going to get much use case. It converts a selected mana gem into a 3x wild card. Not all of them, otherwise that'd be so strong. Just a singular one of them. This is not horrible, but for 14 mana cost, I can't really see too much of a use case for this compared to every other weapon that you could be running on Hero. If this was non-Hero, I could see this being actually a little bit more viable, but the fact that this is on Hero, meaning that you can't use a different Hero weapon, is pretty limiting as far as what you can end up doing with it. It is a cool effect. There's a lot of things that end up, selecting a single gem and converting it over. But having this mechanic on Hero just really bottlenecks what you can run as your weapon, as this doesn't really mana accumulate that much, but does have some interesting board control, as you can put this anywhere. So if there is a single color that is an extra turn, like let's say there's like 3 green with like a gap in between, or like green, blue, green, green, or anything else, like regardless of what the color is, you're almost always going to have an option for this. I'm just not sure if it would be worth doing that, giving up your entire hero weapon. And the 14 mana cost is the main thing that's concerning. If it was like 12-ish or so, or a little bit lower than that, I could see this kind of working out. But 14 is a little steep, even with a 3x wild card. I don't know. I guess that covers most of what you need. The problem is it only covers most if you do it 4 times. If you do it 5 times, you're good to go. The problem is any situation where all you're getting is a 4 times. As, what would that end up being? That'd be 12 mana if you don't have any link on that. And 12 mana is very distinctly not 14, which is one of the reasons why I said this would be a lot more interesting if it was 12. 14 mana cost makes this weapon a lot less viable compared to 12 mana cost, more so than a lot of other options in the game. So, unfortunately, despite this weapon existing, and it'd be kind of cool mechanic, gimmicky-wise, the 14 mana cost is its biggest downside, and probably the main reason why it won't be used. But that is on the paid side. Other things is the tarot card that's useless unless it's going to get used for something, and of course the legend. The legends, okay, you're probably almost exclusively using a Divinion Fields restrictions where you're going to use Centurion for Devour. Ends up dealing some damage to 3 random enemies, then creates 3 to 6 3x wild cards, which you're pretty much only really using if you're going to be using Centurion for the Devour. It does end up giving all Centaur allies 50% mana start, so this does have some implications with full Centaur teams. So you would end up doing this with Centurion, you would end up doing it with Wardbreaker, you would end up doing it with, honestly, any kind of Centaur team. While there are a few that do have some mana start, this will help all the ones that don't. And of course, K can help Wardbreaker's 50% mana start. Can help his mana a little bit at least. But yeah, it's mostly going to be used for his final trait. You're either using him for his final trait or using his ability to go and get Devour for Centurion. I don't really see this being used outside of any context whatsoever other than a Divinion Field restriction. Unless it's a Centaur restriction or Divinion Field restriction, you are never bringing this out otherwise. It just will not really have much of a use case. But this does give Centaurs a little bit of a buff. If anything, this is kind of the buff that we needed for, I guess, Centaurs. While the actual rework itself didn't really buff Centaurs, is about the closest thing we're going to get. So at least we have something going towards it. Beyond that, keep in mind, all this will be available in the future, so you don't necessarily need to pay for the pass. I think the pass is like $7 or so. But yeah, you can get all this in the future. It's mostly just resources. The pet will be available as soon as the event ends. All the things in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests will be in the drop table after a few months. And the next Divinion Fields event, you should be able to craft both the 2 weapons as well as event key for them. So the next event for Divinion Fields that takes place after this 2-week-long event, you should be able to go and do all that for them. So you'll be able to get all this in the future. As also, of course, the tarot card will also be available in like a few months from now as well. So all this will be available at a later point. So even if you don't end up getting any of it, you don't need to worry too much. But it is highly advised to at least do the daily and at least get all the free side rewards. And if you are going to buy it, it is pretty good value relative to the things that you could be buying. A lot of resources that you get there. You get a few deed books. You get enough to upgrade a single mythic to max as far as all the extra effects. You get enough copies to max out everything as well, except for the legend. But as far as the 2 lower rarity troops and the pet, you get enough to do that. So it's almost like a pet orb in a sense as well. Also, I didn't mention, but the pet just gives extra bonuses to the 50% mana start troop, which helps him a little bit for damage, but overall his ability is not really his main selling point unless you're using it for its wildcard mechanic. It's mostly his 50% mana start that you're utilizing him for, as that ends up helping out all the Centaurs quite a bit. Beyond that, okay, let's go into everything else. So, other things to mention. Let's see, we did that. I feel like there was one other big thing. Oh yeah, also all this info is linked in the description if you want to go and check any of it here. And it goes over everything else. I think it also goes over when everything comes out too. Which, have they always had that here? I generally know when things come out, but they actually have like a whole thing here. I'm like, oh, this is what all this stuff comes out later down the line. This is just for the event, nothing to really mention directly there. Oh yeah, all the things happening this week, which isn't much actually. Oh yeah, the pet though. Arena event weekend, so basically no event this weekend. Oh yeah, that reminds me, I will not be streaming today, by the way, on this Monday. We will be streaming probably on this Friday, just going really deep on like Underspire or something. Because from hurricane damage from several years back, we're finally getting the floor repaired, as it's almost caving in at some points in the house. So they'll be doing that over the next few days. So unfortunately, no stream this Monday, but we should be doing one, I guess, on Friday then. Unfortunately, I have Arena weekend, but at least we could go do Underspire or something else during that day. But anyways, one thing that's pretty noteworthy about the weekly events, though, that's actually worth mentioning now, as it's probably one of the bigger things happening other than the Kingdom Pass that's happening every single day, and that is this pet right here. This pet is from, if I'm not mistaken, the 11th campaign from the Crystal Key event. This is one of the money locked pets, the $10 money locked pets that were from the season passes. So of course, every single season pass comes around, it's about $10 or so, and lasts for 10 weeks. And then all the pets from there, they basically never really come back again. They've been pretty bad about re-adding these to the game, but so far this year, they've been doing a lot of old pets coming back on Wednesday events. And yeah, this is no different. This, I believe, is the 11th campaign pet. So I believe this is the first time it has ever been free or available for free within the game. Of course, there's still like pet offers and stuff. I believe you can get it for like a few bucks, but as far as getting it like 100% for free, this is the first time I believe it's ever rolled around. So you'll be able to do that this Wednesday if you didn't end up getting it from the campaign, or if you didn't buy the pass at the time for the 11th campaign. Yeah, definitely make sure to go get it this Wednesday then. It will be available all day. And of course, it's just cosmetic, but it's a cute little crystal doggy. Anyways, beyond that, other things to mention that are pretty important. The campaign pass we already mentioned. Make sure to be doing this every day. You can only miss one day over the next 2 weeks in order to get all the rewards. Even if you're only doing free side, 100% still worth it, as you get a lot of really good loot, even on the free side, as well as the weapon all the way at the end. And if you're paying for it, you definitely want to be doing it. Beyond that, weekly events, we have the Frostfire Keep this Tuesday, which is a yellow-blue restriction. Wednesday, we have the pet that you definitely do not want to miss out on if you didn't end up getting it, as these very absurdly rarely ever come back. Thursday class event is Titan, really good, 50% mana start. You're going to be using it for a lot of stuff this week, as is a Stormheim restriction. And this Friday, as we mentioned, we have a arena event, aka no event at all. As far as Soulforge is concerned, oh yeah, I didn't actually check it earlier, did I? Let's see. Oh, Mistralis. That's kind of interesting because she's also in the event queue drop table this week. So you could both event key for it or get it from Soulforge. So if you want to try for it initially on event key and then try Soulforge, you can. Otherwise, you can just get it directly off of Soulforge. Her main gimmick is she enchants your entire team whenever you take a extra turn. She also has auto extra turn on her ability, assuming she's not frozen, of course, and has a pretty inconsistent amount of damage, but she has an extra turn jumble, which has some interesting use cases, as it essentially resets the board and allows you to keep taking mana from it. But she's mostly used for her enchant and the fact that she has an extra turn ability. Overall, not too bad. I feel like it's become a lot more situational these days, but still a really good troop overall. And it seems like the best thing to be crafting this week if you're going to go bother for one. Beyond that, actually, was this anything? Archduke Bloodwood. Is this... No, I don't think this is the first time this has been around. It's pretty useless, regardless. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is rotated at least once. It's not good, though. I was gonna say, it's like, wait, has this thing ever rotated around? I can't remember it has or hasn't. But it's pretty useless regardless, so it doesn't really matter too much. As far as weapons are concerned, I would say mostly the mana accumulating ones. I used a lot of teams that used the 2 giant explodey ones this week. Oh yeah, I didn't go over the teams yet. We need to go over the teams. What are we doing? We haven't gone over every team, which will also be in the description below. But this thing explodes a bunch of blues and does an effect based on giants. But the one that I think I used a bit more when showing all the teams was actually the Enor Mace, which does the same thing but for green-yellow. But it's basically the exact same effect, almost all the same. I don't believe it gains in rage, but still has like the stun mechanic. Overall, its coloration's a bit better for a lot of teams though, so you tend to use it because of that. Also, just out of paranoia to double check, I don't believe they are, but I always like to check just in case. Every single time. I know it isn't, but I know we'll forget to mention it the week I don't click on them. But no, it's 1 to 2 explodey weapons, which we'll show in the teams right now. So, as far as all the teams this week, this invasion, we have ourselves a giant restriction. Of course, you want to be able to go put Helder onto all your teams, not just because she's going to be good for it, but also because she ends up giving you double... Also, I just realized I didn't bother upgrading her earlier. Should probably do that now. Let's see. Get her a little bit extra damage. Also, oddly enough, when it comes to these modes, you actually do not need to upgrade the raid or invasion troops to get the max amount of score. You always get double score for using them, even if you're simply just using them. So if you're a little bit more pinched on resources and don't really have a lot, yeah, you can simply just use her. You don't actually need to go orb her or upgrade her. I still do just to get the event done quicker. However, this is actually not required to do to maximize score, at least for raid and invasion events with how they are currently set up. You can actually leave her exactly as is, as just like a base epic. And as long as you can carry with another troop, you'd be perfectly fine. You actually don't need to upgrade her at all, but we have the resources, so we're going to just to speed up the event. But as far as the first team here, it is a giant restriction, so you're most likely going to want to be using the other one. If you end up getting him shiny during the event, he even has 1 lower mana cost, which is nice. And yeah, he was the last events one, I would assume. Like the last time we ended up having like a giant restriction, elemental restriction, or whatever it was, Stormheim restriction. But yeah, he also works under this overlap for giant, so it ends up working out really, really well. I think it was for element last time. But yeah, he still has the same amount of damage to tower. The only thing he doesn't have is the double magic like she does. So he does do half as much damage. However, this is still enough to one-shot for a lot of the time until you get a little bit deeper. And if you do need the higher damage, you simply just use her. However, they both have the exact same amount of skull damage. And what's nice is he even has 50% skull reduction, so he's really bulky. Helder basically does the same thing, but has a backup summon if you end up needing it. Also has double the amount of magic. Your wand here is mostly just for mana accumulation, that you can use any weapon in the entire game. And Hindla, similarly, can be used for pretty much any option. We're kind of just using her here for a little bit of magic. And if you really, really need it, she also has a backup summon as well. If your slight backup summon wasn't enough, you have double backup summon. As far as the lower rarity version of this, we're basically using a backup Ogress, so if these things start taking too much damage and you need a new tank, you can move her all the way to the front by exploding and getting a bunch of mana accumulation. And here we have the start of us spamming this throughout a lot of things this week, because it's really good this week. The Enor Mace, both the 2 explodey giant weapons are really, really good to have. Either getting both of them, or at least whatever one you plan to use more. going to be really good. When it comes to the invasion event, it is much better to go for the green-yellow one, mostly because the brown-red one is full mana blocked by the other invasion troop. So if you're going to go craft only one weapon, it is probably the green-yellow one, which I was mentioning its coloration is a little bit better, mostly due to confliction with Jordan, as well as if you were to do some kind of team with Ural Fire Mantle. They both have full mana conflict with quite a few things, whereas green-yellow is a little bit more flexible, as generally the green is not mana blocked by a lot of things more often than not, whereas going brown-red is mana blocked by quite a bit more things when it comes to giants, particularly Stormheim giants. Beyond that, the faction event is blue-yellow for this Tuesday. Of course, any colored weapon can be used, so pretty standard rolling team, just using a Harpy Mage as our turn 2 mana accumulator. And for the higher rarity team, we're just going with a pretty standard double insta-kill. Just using Harpy Mage for our turn 2 explosion, and then Wand just for our main mana accumulation thereafter. As far as Pure Faction team, you use a nice diverse team of just Frostfire Wraith. Also a really good easy way as an early game player to get a 65% score reduction. It is one of the higher score reductions in the entire game, and the most accessible really high score reduction, as is simply a rare from Frostfire Keep. All you have to do is throw like 100 shards, and you'll probably get this thing from Frostfire Keep. Though do keep in mind you will need 4 of them to be able to do this team, though it is very common, so it will not take that long at all to go get those 4. But it has a lifesteal mechanic, boosted by burning and frozen enemies. But most biggest gimmick of it is its 65% reduction with a lifesteal. This is very, very, very bulky, and while it can still die to spell damage, it is, as long as you keep baiting out all the skulls and just keep casting them over and over and over again, he ends up working out pretty well. And you just true damage spam into true damage spam and just kill them out one at a time. Not the quickest team as far as winning, but it is very, very, very bulky. And as long as you're going into the final fight with at least 3 of them, you should be perfectly fine for that final battle there. As far as the Titan class event, a little bit more diverse this time around, but basically we're just spamming Dawnbringer until we win. If you don't have Dawnbringer, you can use Summer's Fury with 3 Fire Giants. But with this, we're using the Sapphire Giant in order to get the blue giant gems whenever they take a skull, as well as his ability that converts into a bunch of blue. Dawnbringer obviously is our main kill option. Sapphire for the yellow link and can also get some excess mana if we happen to get it. And Fire Giant for a little bit of fire link, and you can also do a different little bit of damage poke. But Summer's Fury and a triple Fire Giant or any similar team will also get the job done. As far as Underspire is concerned, this is a Stormheim restriction. With that being said, your biggest option is definitely the blue Celestial Dragon if you have it. Ends up dealing a very high amount of damage with extra turn potential, also being very bulky for your first slot and giving a bunch of extra stats to all your blue allies, which is pretty much your entire team. We're using the Mace here just as a standard mana accumulation option. Unfortunately, there is not a particularly good blue mana accumulation option, so we do have to settle on this one. But it ends up working out pretty nice because it's coloration, because of course the brown-red one would not work as good in this team, but the green-yellow one would. So green-yellow one definitely better to get the brown-red one if you're only going to get one or the other. Mistralis here just for the enchant and the extra turn, a little bit of poke damage. And of course it is full mana blocked, but the enchant is mostly just to get everything up. Alternatively, you can technically go double of the Cosmic Dragon, but the Mistral is mostly just make sure you have some standard amount of mana accumulation. So even if you're getting unlucky on your hero to go get the mace up, you'd still be able to go get it up eventually after enough turns. And the Frostfire King here is mostly just for its freeze burn, mostly for the freeze. You can also get a little bit of damage out of it. Beyond that, as far as the low rarity team, I did still refer to this as a low rarity because it's a faction legend, so it is always easy to go and target with Chaos Shards. Under 1,000 should easily get you one from Frostfire Keep, probably even lower than that. But beyond that, we're using Frostfire Wraith from the exact same location that you would easily have if you went for Frostfire King. You could even double, triple up on this if you really had to, though. It does work a little bit worse for Underspire compared to, or sorry, a little bit worse for Underspire compared to Underworld, as you don't get all those potion effects. And those potion effects help get him rolling off the ground, particularly in Enchant, and he explodes at start of battle, whereas in Underspire you do not have that mechanic, so you have to end up getting that up through the weapon. Here is one of the few situations where running the brown-red weapon is actually better than the green-yellow one, due to it being blocked on yellow. So it does basically the exact same thing, just with Enrage. So overall, basically using it for the same purpose. And this is a full giant team, so of course we're using Titan Hero class. Titan Hero class gives 50% mana start to all giants. Or sorry, it's actually not full giant because of the Frostfire King, but you could easily replace that out if you want to go like double Baldair or something and go really heavy skull spam. Only big issue with Baldair is he does end up creating skulls based on blue allies. And one slight issue with this team is your hero weapon is not blue. However, 12 skulls is still a lot. Not as good as 16, but you know, still enough to hit. Potential chance that you end up missing, but if you want to try offsetting that, you can just go double Baldair. You do end up losing your freeze in case you do end up missing. However, the amount of damage you have when you do end up landing would be quite a bit better. And then you just keep using his really high score reduction with the fact that he has lifesteal to hopefully make sure he never dies. And even if he does, you have resummon off your hero, so you just replace him with a new tank, and then you just keep killing them out with Baldur over and over and over again. Will be a little bit less effective if the resummon isn't blue though, but that's why the Frostfire King is also here, just to offset damage in case that does end up happening, as there's a chance it would. And of course, no real weekend event teams other than Arena. But you might want to go and run whatever your quick kill options are, like Rowan quick kill if you want to go do that for farming out the events for the next 2 weeks, or the Dust Devil quick kills, which you probably want to run actually the double Ironhawk one. This is a superior Dust Devil double Ironhawk, as that'll be really good for farming up the current Kingdom Pass over the next 2 weeks. Hey, Tribute ready. Anyways, in other news, what have we not got over? Hey, we actually already got that done. Wow. Have we already taken 3 tributes? Has it been that long this morning already? Apparently. Anyways. Other things we need to go over. So guild event we already kind of went over. Invasion. We do get a new weapon. So invasion's pretty straightforward. Just make sure to go use the Heldor so you get double score. It's a giant restriction, so of course restricted to only giants. But you basically just keep killing the towers. Once you get to 4 of them, the Tower Slayer troops kind of just auto-win you every battle. Honestly, it's almost harder to do these 2 stages than it is to do the final stage, just because of how absurdly strong the invasion troops are against the towers and everything. And you technically don't even need to upgrade the new one. You can simply just let all the old ones just absolutely obliterate everything, and just simply have the new one sit in the back, so you don't have to upgrade it. Though, of course, upgrading it does allow you to utilize that double magic a little bit more. However, you do not need to upgrade her to get the double score, only for utilizing her double magic a bit better. Beyond that, there's a new weapon. New weapon's pretty bad, though. You still want to get it, just to have it. But, it's pretty bad. It deals a bunch of damage to the first 2 enemies, boosted by giant allies. And like many boost ratios in the game, particularly later in the game, it is not high enough to do anything whatsoever. Beyond that, we did that. Event key drop table. So event key drop table, honestly, not that bad this week. So if we go over to collection, we can see that we have everything over here. The list of things that are not in drop table is decently long and include the following. The Penguin is basically a discontinued troop at this point because there's no Guild Wars anymore until the new patch. Not sure if they're going to be fixing that and adding these back in or something. But as it currently stands, this troop is basically discontinued. So hopefully you'll be able to get that from Guild War after Guild War comes in next patch. The 5 Frostfire Keep troops are all from Thoron Chaos Shards at Frostfire Keep. Beyond that, the current invasion troop of the Heldor Grave is not in drop table as well. This is only from the current event from spending gems. You need to get, I believe, 120 in order to get the first copy of her, in order to have one to go use for the event to get your double score. Luckily, all the other ones are in drop table. However, she herself for the current event is not. Strength is not in drop table. This is from the Vault Key drop table. Also, how on earth do I have 57 of them? Has it been out that long? Unfortunately, the Giant Sentinel and all the Sentinels that are super annoying to get are not in the drop table. This is a very rare chance from getting it whenever you go do Underspire. And beyond that, the Celestial Dragon, the best thing that you have for running Underspire this week, is also not in drop table. This is from the Celestial Dragon drop table in Soulforge. As far as things that are in drop table that are worth going for, honestly, now that I'm looking at it, the event key mythics are actually kind of bad. Because Grimborn is like a small insta-kill, never really used unless you absolutely have to. Jotnar Storm Shield, pretty notoriously pretty bad, not enough to even one-shot. Does have some barrier, but very rarely are you ever using it. Onyx Giant has some interesting use cases, but can sometimes backfire because it creates 2 Uberdoom Skulls when he takes skull damage, which sometimes helps the enemy way more than it helps yourself. There are a lot of situations where he can be good, but he can backfire really heavily compared to an average troop, as he has a final trait that can actively punish yourself. So very situational, but when it does work out pretty well. But yeah, overall, honestly, now that I'm looking at it, it's decently skippable. There's like some utility troops you might want to pick up, like Hindla if you don't already have it for the giant bonus, Euro for some giant teams as well. Having Baldur for having like 2 or 3 of them, some fun gimmicky teams you can end up running with if you don't already have it. But yeah, never mind. Actually, now that I'm looking at the Divinion drop table a bit more, like there are some good things to get, and there are some good troops, but a lot of the good troops are not in the event key drop table. Like this is one of the strongest troops in the entire game, but it's not in drop table. This thing's like the best option you have for Underspire, but it's not in drop table. So yeah, never mind. Actually, the drop table's not that good. Almost all the best options are not in drop table, and the one that is like the absolute best option, you can just Soulforge this week. you don't actually even need to event key. You could try if you want to, but it's a 1 in like 4,000 chance or so if you're doing like gem key or something. Or sorry, not gem key, I mean a event key. Because they're not a gem key. Well, they technically are a gem key, but you know, exclusively an event key. That we're going to event key drop table. But yeah, it's like 1 in 4,000 event keys, and that's not worth going just for Mistralis. At that point, you're way better just spending 4,000 diamonds getting your guarantee Mistralis and Soulforge. If you've been looking to go and get her, it's way better value than trying to event key for it. And the fact that she's actually available this week, honestly, just go for this. Maybe if you want to try like a few hundred or something, but realistically, just get her for Soulforge if you really want her, as it is way better value than trying to event key unless you get really, really, really lucky. But overall, yeah, honestly, I would say pretty skippable then, unless you're looking to pick up a utility troop that you need for some kind of event this week. But beyond that, yeah, pretty skippable actually, as there's just too many bad mythics in the drop table. If it was only like Mistralis and like one other half decent one and like one other good one, I could say yes, but she's pretty much the only thing in drop table as far as like super high rarity stuff that's really, really noteworthy. Anyways, beyond that, we did that, chess, we did collection. Oh yeah, the new troop. So as far as the, oh yeah, also don't forget, every single time if you go to shop and resources, I normally do this beforehand, but you can get 10 event keys every single week. So if you do want to try for the Mistralis or save them for later, they're basically free. They're only 180 glory each. You should always be buying these 10 every single week. Also get a few other loots, like these very useful treasure maps. But yeah, it's mostly for the 10 event key, of course. But beyond that, Rotting Serpent, really, really, really bad. Honestly, every single thing that's come in through the Rotting gem mechanic has been pretty abysmal so far. This diseased and poisons an enemy and creates 5 skulls boosted by decaying gems, and that's it. It does nothing. Its ratio is way too low to ever bother using. Even if this was 1-to-1, I'm not sure you would even use this. The fact that it's 3-to-1 is actually kind of insane. But yeah, they've been doing a lot of really bad troops with it. Feels like the last mechanic too. I've been getting a lot of really bad options for the main mechanics recently. But anyways, is that all the things? I believe that might be all of the things. But as we mentioned, all of the teams are in the description below if you end up needing any of them. Beyond that, do not forget to be doing the Kingdom Pass every single day, as you can only miss 1 day over the next 2 weeks in order to still be able to claim all the rewards. And even if you're only on free side, you still want to be doing that. And if you're on pay side, you definitely want to make sure you claim everything, as you'll be able to get a ton of loot along the way. And beyond that, do not forget to go get the pet this Wednesday, as if you didn't end up buying it during Campaign 11 or just weren't around at the time. It is the first time I believe this has ever been available for free, so definitely make sure to go and pick it up if you didn't already get it in the past. Anyways, guys, but yeah, we'll be streaming this Friday, I guess, kind of going and probably just doing Underspire, messing around with the Celestial Dragon and whatever else we end up doing for this, as those are going to be the main options. Unless we want to go a fun Baldur build. Baldur just fall off a little bit later down the line, though, but running double of those, honestly, I'm probably going to run some Giant Sentinel. I didn't want to show this as a team because I know so many people don't have it, but the Giant Sentinel is actually probably the most broken Sentinel in the game, as it works like Bone Dragon, but has Curse on top of it, which means if something extra turn skulls you, not only do they get frozen, but they get Curse frozen, meaning even if they have Impervious, and they take an extra turn skull, they will lose their turn, as the Curse freeze takes effect before it checks for extra turn. It is so absurdly good against skull spam teams, as is 50% score reduction and Curse freeze, which is way better than Bone Dragon's non-score reduction with only freeze. It is basically just really absurdly strong Bone Dragon for back in the day, back when there wasn't as many counters to it, and when he used to create 1 billion skulls. This doesn't create skulls though, but has a half decent ability still for durability and some mana accumulation. But honestly, out of all 6 Sentinels, I would say this is the strongest one in the game, particularly if Skull meta ever makes a comeback. Unfortunately, though, there's no way to target it. It's not an event key, and you have to deal with the very, very, very annoying, you know, doing Underspire every single week and hoping you get lucky from a corner room mechanic, which I still hope they do something to make those more common. I'm still only have 4 out of 6, by the way. I have not gotten my 5th or 6th copy yet. We've gotten more copies, just not unique ones, because it rolls randomly. It doesn't even give you, like, 1 of each unique before it starts re-rolling and everything. So you can get really unlucky in never getting it. But if you didn't, if you have ever ended up getting him, he is so good and pretty applicable this week with like 20% extra stats and everything. Oh, I didn't mention that, but every giant from Stormheim has 20% stats this week. So using Titan Hero class is really good for damage this week, as well as just almost everything from the Kingdom having 20%. So definitely worth considering. Obviously, his Dragon only has 10%, but still worth it even with it. But anything that's a giant from Stormheim, which is like 80-90% of the Kingdom, all have 20% extra stats. So you could be utilizing that for anything throughout the week as well. But anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. I will catch all you guys, I guess, technically on Friday, and then I guess on next week's Monday video as per usual. But anyways, guys, enjoy your week. Best of luck with everything, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.